Today on Let's Talk Native, I am joined by Donna Fann-Boyle, and we're going to talk about Native mascots and inappropriate names used by high schools. Welcome to Let's Talk Native. Today we are going to talk about the mascot issue and the nicknames, the inappropriate names that high schools and sports teams from college to professional sports use that frankly are offensive and need to change. My guest today is Donna Fann-Boyle, and we're going to have a complete conversation about the work that she's done, specifically addressing Neshaminy High School. So I want to welcome Donna Fann-Boyle to Let's Talk Native.
Thank you. Hi, it's nice to be here.
Well, it is really great to get a chance. You and I have known each other for a couple of years now because of some of the work that I've done back home in my area of Seneca Territory in Western New York. We had a high school that had a name, and I was actually asked by the high school to come in and educate them, which hasn't exactly been your experience.
No.
Your experience is completely different because you have a school that is just absolutely opposed to even having the dialogue about the inappropriateness. And of course, the school is called the Neshaminy Redskins, and they have created a whole creepy kind of culture around it. Everything from, they have a contest called Mr. Redskin.
Yes, the Mr. Redskin contest.
Yeah, which is
crazy. Crazy. Yep.
But so not only are you working, you personally working to try to raise awareness of this issue, you've actually had some pretty good support, even from the school newspaper.
Oh yeah.
And of course that turned into a debacle all by itself because the editors and the students involved in the newspaper decided, after learning from you, that they no longer wanted to print the word redskin in their newspaper.
Right.
And they basically got punished for it. Right. Talk to me about that.
And actually, they weren't the first class that wanted to do away with it. This goes back many years. And I read an article in 2004 about the same teacher advisor who worked on the school newspaper at the time, Tara Gould, and how the kids at that time wanted to do away with it, but I guess they were just too afraid, and there was pushback from the school board. But this group in 2014, 2015, they said that they were not gonna back down. So they decided to do a ban on it, and it was crazy. It was the school board pushed back, the administrators pushed back, the community pushed back. It got really ugly.
I mean, they actually wanted to take disciplinary action.
They did take disciplinary action. Yeah, when they banned the word, and then the principal said, well, you can't print an article unless it's got the word in it. And they said, no, we're gonna put R dash dash dash. And he said, well, if you do that, then you can't print the paper. So they're advising.
And has there ever been this kind of oversight and this kind of
no
for this newspaper? I mean, because this is essentially, even beyond this issue, this paper is pretty notable. I mean, they're an award-winning publication.
Award-winning, and that's where actually years ago when I first started this in 2012, I saw how they were winning awards, and I actually talked to the student press. And, I called them and I said, how can you give them an award when they're using a racial slur? And this is about words. This is a paper. It's about words. Yeah. And he actually talked to his board members and they didn't want to get into it. But after everything played out and these kids got, awards and they were noticed and the city of Philadelphia made a resolution to them, well then, the student press.
I mean, did they even win a NAJA award?
A NAJA?
Yeah, Native American Journal. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, the city of Philadelphia made a resolution to them, and the policy for publications was 1 page long. Mm-hmm. It's now 9 pages long, and it's
Well, and let me go beyond this because now we'll talk more about this. But the other thing that's happening is now you're involved in working with a group to create a documentary on the subject called the
R Word.
The R Word.
Yep.
And at this point you have a bit of a trailer. You have some footage that you've already shot.
Yes.
So let's go to that because I think that may lay some foundation. We'll go to that right now and then we'll come back.
Okay. Do you ever wonder why it is that Native American culture is unquestionably appropriated at such an alarming rate? Approximately 1,000 high schools across the United States use Native American imagery as their sports teams' mascots. I watched my two sons attend a high school celebrating a Native American mascot. When I peacefully brought it to the school board, they shockingly ignored me. The administration made it perfectly clear that they heard me, but just failed to do anything about it.
A team of us were working on a Chamonix High School student publication, The Playwikian. When we, the editorial board, debated on the issue, we decided to support Donna's protest by removing the mascot name entirely from the newspaper. We all thought, why is it that we are so able and entitled to decide what representation of Native culture is?
To this date, Neshaminy continues to spend tax dollars appealing Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission's decision to change the name, a complaint that I filed in 2013 citing Neshaminy's own harassment policies. In raising this issue, I became the target of online bullying and harassment.
Well, that seems like a nice start. My guest today is Donna Fann-Boyle. She is Choctaw and Cherokee, and she has been actively involved in this issue in her hometown, where the high school is the Neshaminy Redskins. Obviously, this subject matter, it is so deep because it cuts into everything from not only sports teams, I mean, from these high school teams to college teams to pro teams, and we'll talk a little bit about the Washington football team as well, and some of what that battle's turned into. But at its core, and this is what seems to get missed in all of this, is you have a circumstance where non-native schools, and that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about very, very white communities.
Yes.
And I don't say that to be insulting, but let's face it, they're predominantly white communities that have adopted or appropriated this imagery. And then they turn around and try to tell us, well, we're honoring Native people.
Right.
But, and this is one of the things that, and you and I have talked, one of the things that I always stress on this thing is at the same time that these schools, because they're claiming, oh, we've had it for 70 years, 80 years, 100 years.
Right.
These schools, at the same time that they were appropriating these images, was the same era that the residential / boarding schools existed in the United States and Canada.
Right.
And these schools were created as the most overt genocidal assimilation programs that any country has ever had. I mean, their policy was kill the Indian, save the man. And children were not just stripped of culture. They were killed in these schools. They were abused, sexually abused, psychologically abused. They were tortured. They were forbidden to speak their language, and not just forbidden, they were punished and beaten for speaking their language.
Right.
They had their hair chopped off. They had their names changed.
Yes.
Carlisle Indian School, for instance, in Pennsylvania, has a graveyard with over 200 tombstones. And that's not even all of the children who died there. I don't know how many people experience having a school that required a graveyard, but these residential schools did. And some of those schools, or some of those graves, were unmarked graves.
Yes, yes.
How could you have a student that you didn't know their name?
Right, exactly. And we took a trip up to Carlisle, I guess about 2 months ago. And I mean, I found it so creepy because not only are you dealing with schools that are appropriating and teams that are appropriating, and then you've got these kids that died because they weren't allowed to be what they are. Then you've got people, I think they're military families that live there, and I saw a playground where those children get to go and play and have fun and have a good time, and there's those graves of those children who died because they were Native.
Well, and they were whisked from their families
Yes.
and sent to these schools to assimilate them, to again, kill the Indian in them.
Yes.
And I guess my point in this conversation is that at the same time children were having their culture
ripped from them,
Right. and
Right.
basically being abused in the process.
Yes.
Little white kids are being encouraged to have
Dress
a
up.
tom-tom and a tomahawk and play
Cowboys and
and
Indians.
Indians and
Yes.
put feathers in their hair.
Yes.
But let a native child at one of these residential schools hang on to even their medicine pouch, and there was a good chance they were going to get beaten for that.
Yes, absolutely.
And the absurdity of that is to me so compelling that when I hear anybody suggest, well, we're honoring your people. No, you weren't, and you weren't then, and you aren't now.
Right.
And I think this is the part that gets missed in a lot of this conversation, because what it really comes down to is that this appropriation now is being treated as if they own it.
Right.
They own the name, they own the image, they own our history, and it's not even our history because it's been twisted so much.
Right.
So they don't want our history to exist because they want this imagery
The
that
fantasy.
the fantasy, and that's exactly what's been created here. And I think for anybody to take a real look at this, you realize that by creating the fantasy, by creating the stereotype, you're denying real history. I mean, people are real quick to talk about somebody being a Holocaust denier.
Yes,
this
right.
is Holocaust denying in its own right.
Exactly. And I've brought that subject up because, we have the Facebook pages where you go and you post your stuff, and Neshaminy has it's a page for all the citizens to go to. So I go and, I post what I can. And of course, it's always, they're coming after me. So then I post anything educational, and I tell them that this was genocide, this was a Holocaust. This is where Hitler learned to mold his Holocaust.
Well, and I would argue that it's still a genocide going on, because as long as this is perpetuated, and it's perpetuated in schools where young minds are being shaped.
Yes.
So you're encouraging a certain level of discrimination and racism, which leads to everything from bullying to harassment, in spite of all of the laws that are passed. I mean, Pennsylvania has laws, anti-harassment, anti-discrimination laws. New York, they have a specific act in school called
Student Dignity.
The Dignity for All Students Act.
Right.
And of course, there's no enforcement powers to it, but these are geared specifically to be anti-bullying, anti-discrimination laws.
Right.
And in New York, there are still 2 schools left, only 2, Oriskany and Canisteo Greenwood in the southern area.
Right.
Those 2 schools are the only ones still bearing the word Redskin for a team name. They kind of bury it on their websites, but it's there, and they refuse to address it. Now, the school that I worked with, Lancaster, they invited us in to educate them, and we did. And they basically unanimously voted to get rid of the name. Now they're called the Lancaster Legends.
Right.
Now, I will say that was met with some pretty stiff opposition from some people who are really committed to that name, and they're still.
Oh, I followed it.
They still break out their Redskins shirts at sporting events and that kind of thing.
Right.
So I mean, there's still a real high level of obstinance that is associated with it. But now another school, because you mentioned about the students of Neshaminy who tried to raise this issue, Cooperstown, New York, which is home, famous for the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Right.
Their students, in fact, a specific number of students who had gone to some sort of summer program and got to meet Native people, realized, having met them, how inappropriate it was that when they went home to Cooperstown.
They were ashamed.
They were ashamed.
Yes.
And so they actually launched a campaign to change the name, and Cooperstown is no longer the Cooperstown.
And when that happened, I was in the beginning of my battle there in Neshaminy, and I called up to Cooperstown to the school district, and there were school board members there that said, "We'll talk to your school board members. We'll help them through this." But our school board said they didn't want to talk to them. They didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, in the overall scheme of things, we're kind of winning this war.
Absolutely.
Every year, more and more schools. Conrad High School in the Red Clay School District of Wilmington, Delaware, just voted to change their names. We're seeing California as a state. They've passed a law forbidding native mascots. But it's not a complete win in some of these places. Sometimes even in Conrad, they've agreed to get rid of the word Redskin, but they're still exploring the possibility of another native mascot. So,
Right.
They don't quite get it.
Right, and Neshaminy buries theirs too, because they've always shortened it to skins, but it's always been with the imagery too.
Yeah.
So now they think if they put skins on their helmet and they don't put a native headdress or something, that it's not it's not an issue. So they try to separate them, but you still see the shirts with the headdress and Redskins, and so it all means the same thing. It's all the same thing.
Now, most colleges, and the NCAA issued rulings, and they've pretty much gotten rid of most of them. Not all of them, because they've created some clauses or some conditions by which schools can use them if they have permission. So, for instance, you have the Florida State Seminoles.
Yes.
Now, of course, the problem with the Florida State Seminoles is most Seminoles don't live in Florida. They live in Oklahoma, and they absolutely oppose the name.
Right.
But the smaller group of Seminoles that do live in Florida, I don't know, they worked out some sort of, I don't know, pay to play or
But I don't even know how they can even look past some of the things that happened, because I saw, who was it, not Chevy Chase, one of the guys.
Oh, Bill Murray, them
stuff like-
flopping each other around on college game day.
Exactly, yeah.
And literally grabbing a guy dressed as Chief
Osceola, right, and flopping him on the ground and then getting over top of him, he has conquered him.
Well, and then when you talk about rewriting history and mischaracterizing history, an example with the Florida State Seminoles is they have a guy dressed up as Chief Osceola rides out on a horse and throws a spear.
Right, they don't go together.
No, you don't ride horses through the swamp.
Exactly. Right.
It might make more sense if you rode in on an alligator, I guess. But no. So the idea of creating this ridiculous image of a Plains Indian,
Yes.
calling him Osceola and throwing a spear out on a football field, it totally mischaracterized. And of course, they'll put gymnasts in regalia, and they'll be doing tumbling across the and it's all of this ridiculousness. And of course, they make a mockery of our dance, they make a mockery of our clothing, they make a mockery of our image and our music, all of that stuff. And of course, like I said, on the college level, it's pretty much been replaced in most places. I mean, Syracuse University used to be the Syracuse Orangemen, which was the Saltine Warrior. Right. So they've changed the thing. St. Bonaventure's used to be the I think the Brown Warriors or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of colleges have changed it. But now you get into the pros. Now. And you can look at both baseball with the Cleveland Indians and Chief Wahoo, or the Atlanta Braves, and again, there's just something creepy about 30,000 people doing a tomahawk chop.
Oh, absolutely.
It looks almost Nazi-esque when you see this thing at a stadium, and of course, the pinnacle of it all is that a country, the United States, that claims to be the bastion of all that is virtuous and all that is right with the world in terms of freedom and democracy and fairness and all of these virtuous things.
And telling everybody else how to run their country and be fair to their people.
Yeah, they want to dictate what human rights is, and yet their marquee sports franchise, billion-dollar enterprise in the nation's capital,
which represents
is the Washington Redskins, a derogatory slur, a racial slur. But again, dictionary defined, but even beyond that, if you take a word and you literally use skin and color in the word, then obviously you're making a reference to skin color.
Right,
So,
exactly.
And of course, Washington has been at the center of this controversy for many years. They've made all kinds of stories. They claim that they got the name from a native person, that Lone Star Dietz, who happens to be German, but I guess they called him Lone Star. That made him native enough, I guess.
Well, he stole somebody else's identity.
Yeah. So they made up all these stories about how they get this name. And again, claim to have have adopted it at the same time that those residential schools were in full swing as a national policy.
Right, and even Preston Marshall, the owner of the team, they said, oh, he did this to honor natives, but then we found some press where he put in there he absolutely did not do it to honor Lone Star Dietz or any other native player that was on the team. He did it because he liked the word, he liked the name, and it sounded tough. That's what they do it for.
Yeah.
It sounds tough.
Well, I mean, let's face it, any mascot, whether you're taking it from an animal, a lion or a tiger or a bear, you are trying to essentially capture an imagery from your mascot that you claim for your own. The problem is, when you're using a people who live today,
Right.
sitting
Exactly.
facing each other,
Right.
you're suggesting that what we represent is just a
History.
warrior culture,
Right.
a history of warfare and fierceness, and and granted, I'm not saying that they don't try to associate some nobility associated with it, but at the end of the day, they forget that we were an artistic people and are an artistic people, that we were a peaceful people, that we understood humanities in a way that the Europeans couldn't even fathom when they first washed up on our shores.
Spiritual people.
Absolutely, all of that.
Respected everything on the earth, related to everything on the earth.
And instead, what they've done is they've tried to create their own image of who we are, and then claim it for themselves. Now, the Washington football team, like I said, they're at the center of this controversy. But I want to mention, again, Preston Marshall, because the other thing about Preston Marshall is that he was an overt racist. He was
yes.
His team was the last NFL team to allow a black man to play on the football
and
team.
JFK had to force him to do it. And then I think I had heard that their families weren't allowed in the stadium. They had to sit outside.
It's just absolutely outrageous. But I mean, the status right now, the Washington football team has been challenged. They were challenged a number of years ago by Suzanne Harjo in a patent and trademark case where Suzanne had challenged whether the laws associated with patents and trademarks could apply to a racial slur. Right. She won in court, but then they appealed it. They appealed it on some ridiculous technicality.
Right,
where they
something
said,
to do with timing and their age.
Yeah, they said she was too old.
Right, exactly.
Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. When people think about the statute of limitations, they literally said she had to be within 7 years of her 18th birthday to have done this. So she found some young Native people.
Right,
Amanda Blackhorse is the lead plaintiff in the case, and there's several more that joined her in this, and they have they won on the same grounds that Suzanne did, but now they couldn't have it thrown out with this statute of limitations thing. I want to bring it back down to you though, because you've got this this documentary that you're working on, and the battle still rages on with this high school. This high school is dug in on this more than any other school that I've ever.
Way.
Many of them try to bury it and stay away, but they've actually do more than that. Just like folks like Amanda Blackhorse, you have actually been the victim of a lot of harassment just because of raising the issue. And I don't know if you want to speak to that just briefly before we run out of time.
Oh, I've been called some pretty horrendous names.
You don't need to list them.
I won't list them. But I have an unlisted home phone number, and somehow somebody got my number, and it sounded like somebody that was probably a student and had to call and make threats to me and about my son. And we've had people come to my Facebook page and personal message me and tell me, threaten me. A school bus driver threatened to get people to come down and protest in front of my house. We had to lock our driveway gates because we were afraid somebody...
Well, and there's been vandalism. I know some of the folks from Lancaster High School went through some of this, and of course I got called a name or two. Social media obviously is both a tool to try to get a message out, but it also can be a place where people can do things that are pretty shameful, and that's where I've seen a lot of this harassment come through.
Right. Well, I must say, social media is good in another way too. I've gotten a lot of evidence off of social media.
When you do a frame shot of some of the stuff that gets posted.
Exactly, and then that speaks to their respect and their honor. When they're talking about we do this for respect and honor, then I can show how these people behave and the things that they say. And so I think the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission took a lot of that into consideration when people were having that argument, well, we're doing it for honor, and then they can go back and look at that and say, no, these are threats. These are outright threats, and it's degradation, and it's everything that this mascot represents. It's everything that we're fighting against, and they're proving it right there in their own words with their picture right there with it.
Well, and I'm hoping this documentary does help bring more light to the issue, and I think you do a great job, voicing this and giving attention to this. I think it's really, really important that people understand that children are harmed by these by this imagery, and not only are children harmed, but because this thing goes from middle schools to high schools. Colleges are still using it and pro teams are using it. It reinforces at almost every level and every age level that somehow being able to discriminate against a people, a living, breathing people. Well, you know, whether we're autonomous or whether we are considered part of the American culture or not, the fact that this is allowed and more than allowed, it's encouraged. I mean, the nation's capital, for crying out loud, has has this, and I think we have to continue the work that we do. I think what you're doing is fabulous. We'll have you back, especially when you guys get a little farther along with the documentary, and as news breaks on the subject. We'll get you back.
I did file another complaint with the OCR.
Okay.
And they've decided to investigate. So there's another complaint. It'll make it a little bit harder for Neshaminy.
Okay.
So, put a little
well,
more heat
and
on.
we'll keep track on the Play-Wickian newspaper with Neshaminy, and again, I give my credit to those folks as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention on this subject? Obviously, it runs the full gamut of how this affects people, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, something that's very important to me is that the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission did find in my favor, and they did rule against the school district. And the school district is appealing it. But in the meantime, the Human Relations Commission decided that they were going to make it even a broader complaint so that they would show how it affects all children, not just Native children. It hurts all children, from kindergarten all the way up.
Well, if you promote discrimination and racism, it isn't just the victim that is at risk. Oftentimes, you're promoting something that somebody can carry with them and either victimize other people or just think that it's plain okay.
Right, and it gives the victim a false sense of inferiority.
Sure.
And then the people who are that are promoting this, they feel that they're superior.
Yeah, for a false sense of superiority.
Superiority, sure. Right, and that lasts through their lifetime.
Sure.
And how they treat people.
Now, is there anything that you would recommend that people can do? Obviously, I wanted to see the U.S. Department of Education step up, and they still seem to be dragging their feet. I'm wondering if people can write the Secretary of Education or at the state level, or are there people? What would you recommend somebody do?
Well, first of all, I think you have to get in touch with the Department of Education. They were the ones that told me I needed to go through Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I've been some of the other ladies that are working on this. We've been networking, and we wanted to see like a major complaint filed with OCR, like a what do you call it? Where everybody comes in and does one huge one.
Oh, like a class action.
Class action. Yeah, like a class action. Because really, why do they have these laws if they're not going to abide by them?
Sure.
Why do we have to fight so hard?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a law.
And actually, the onus should be on them to justify what they're doing, and not on us to prove that it's wrong. I mean, when you look at on the face of it how easy it is to identify this as being race-based. I mean, it's skin color based.
Right, exactly.
I mean, and there is this sense of owning somebody else.
Yes.
And this is the idea of dehumanizing a people.
Right.
And then owning that. This is modern day slavery in a way. By
Right.
owning somebody, not just owning an image, but owning a person's history.
Right. And why does a victim have to work so hard for justice?
Sure.
I mean, it should be that if there's somebody that's doing the victimizing, they need to be the ones that are having to
Absolutely.
prove why they're doing what they're doing.
Great point.
Right.
If you want more information, you can go to our website. We'll post more information on this subject. We are both very active on Facebook, but you can go to the R Word Facebook page. That is the Facebook page associated with the film and the work. There is also the rword.com, and that's the website where you can learn more information. My Facebook pages are Let's Talk Native with John Kane, and of course, I will always post a lot of information on this subject as well. But I want to thank you so much for being a guest on this show and helping me address this issue. It's always better to have somebody who's in the trenches in another locale than what many of us have done for years. But
I thank you because you've been great support. I mean, and education-wise, you have really helped me.
Well, and that's what we're a team. So it is so great to have you join me. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, folks, there you have it. That we've pretty much used up the time, but I think you get the idea. You see what's at stake here, and we're going to follow this the story as it goes forward. We'll give you more information as the documentary continues, and we'll participate a little bit with it as well. I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to thank my guest Donna Fann-Boyle for sitting in with me. Yahweh.